time this turns on, we're live.
Yeah. I mean, Kristen, I don't know if you can live your entire life without making a bad decision. I think you can.
That's not what I said.
Well, okay, no. Okay, then say what you said, because like we're debating this right now.
I wasn't even making a standpoint. Like, so to recap, I wanted to talk about it is what it is, but then we kind of drifted towards whether we can learn by listening to other people.
Yeah.
And then we were saying that, oh yeah, we have to learn by personal experience, right? But then you
specifically, I have to learn the hard way for many
you have to
things.
learn the hard way. And then you were bringing up how some people make bad decisions. I forgot how you phrased it.
So you asked, can you like learn, or no, can you avoid making bad decisions? What did you say? It was a good question. And then I went like very
that was close.
Yeah. And so my immediate response was like, well, no, you can't live a life without making bad decisions. But then I was like, well, there's probably a theoretical person somewhere that has made no bad decisions. They probably made neutral decisions or like boring decisions, but they weren't like bad for them. But most people don't do that. I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people spend their life trying to avoid bad decisions. Like when I look at people who I know that are generally comfortable, a lot of what they've done is avoid making bad decisions. You know what I mean?
That was my gut reaction, was I guess this is the whole privilege discussion, right?
Sure.
Like if you were born in a situation where you have good role models for good decisions,
good genetic lottery, good geographic lottery.
Yeah. Then you don't tend to make as many like suboptimal decisions, I guess. But I feel like on the other hand, you probably don't learn as much because you haven't made it the hard way.
I think we're talking about two different things. Not two different things, two related things. But so like there's starting from a position and being in a context such that your natural decision making is generally good for you, right? Good in whatever you're trying to optimize for. I'm talking about people that, regardless of where they came from, the thing that they are optimizing for is not losing something. You know what I mean? Like that's like a different, it's related, and the same person can have both of those things. But the person that I'm really thinking about is this theoretical, like, oh, can you avoid making bad decisions? Like that person doesn't take risks, even if they're like reasonable risks for where they're at, because, you know, perhaps they feel lost more acutely than you or I do, because some people do. Like that's a measurable thing.
Yeah, it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Which is okay. And every time this gets brought up with my friends, I'm always like, it doesn't mean it's better to be risk tolerant. Like, I think as a human tribe, we need that whole range of risk aversion and risk tolerance, so we don't all like walk off a cliff or something.
Yeah, risk aversion, dirty hippie dungeon master. What do you prefer to be called on this stream, by the way? Risk aversion is like the thing that I would call most of like what a person who's generally trying to avoid bad things happening is doing. I think it can generally fall into an abundance versus scarcity mindset, is like how I would generally describe it. It's like hey, things are generally zero sum. So if I optimize for not losing, I won't miss out on my piece of the pie or something like that. Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't play around with magic internet money if you're afraid of losing a lot.
Yeah, thank y'all for joining us. Lots of GMs today.
Yeah, plenty of people in the chat. Love it. Love to see it.
So it is what it is. Let's start off with that as the basis.
There is no sunlight in the winter in Boston. It is what it is.
Yeah. So we wanted to bring this topic up because you wanted to talk about it.
Well, I mean, it's a rhetorical device I use a lot.
In particular, you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, well, okay. So I wanted to talk about sunlight. We just happened, you happen to comment on me saying it is what it is to the conversation we were having earlier. But I mean, maybe it's useful to just talk about it, because like it is what it is in a way is like a focusing ray of sunlight onto whatever you're dealing with. It kind of, it can make it harder to understand what you're going through, because like sunlight is also bright, but it like highlights the thing in a bit of like a dismissive way, and sometimes that's useful, sometimes that's not. But what you said you had a definition of it.
Yeah, my take on it is that people say it is what it is oftentimes because, like, you know, something is happening that isn't going along with whatever they want, right? My assessment of this sentiment, and this includes myself, like for many times in the past, is that when I say that, it feels like, oh, I'm pretending like I'm accepting everything for what it is. But in reality, I'm still averse to what's happening. And that causes the suffering. So it's sort of like the truly more Zen direction way of, like, you know, that statement is, it is what it is, and I completely accept what is happening, and I also don't take that situation, including the attachment to the outcomes, as part of myself. Like, there's actually like a lot of
that's so many words. Can you say it again? Just so, because like I was with you for like 50% of it.
Yeah. So you know, let's pick a situation so it's a little bit more concrete, right?
Okay.
Let's just say, like, you know, us trying to get more viewers for the show, right?
Sure.
Like, that's a concrete thing that we're dealing with.
Yes.
Like, and it is what it is in the truer sense, is me not taking what is happening personally. And like, which is like kind of controversial, right? Because like oftentimes I'm always like, oh, we gotta do XYZ. Like that's usually how my MO is, right? But then it's sort of like the emotional suffering comes from me ascribing, me feeling bad about the situation in the first place, to myself having that thought. So if I were to actually, let me come to this from another angle. You're breathing right now, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, and you were breathing before I asked you that question. There is some autonomic nervous system that's controlling our breathing. You can,
as far as you know, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And the meat robot. And and when I pointed it out, you became aware, and you can probably intentionally like be like controlling your breathing. So is it plausible that a lot of our suffering and a lot of our thoughts come from a part of this autonomic system that also influences your thoughts? So when Kristen feels bad that, you know, she's not getting the number of viewers she wants to get, that initial bad feeling may not have been from truly Kristen. We have to have like a, you know,
lizard Kristen
for now, even though that may also not be true. And it's sort of like, then that causes a cascade of like, you know, like, and then now I feel bad, or like, and then now I feel like, oh, I feel bad, therefore I must do something to fix it, to make the feeling bad go away. And like, those are the events that go beyond it is what it is. And the thing is, it's like, it's easy for me to bring up the breathing as like, you know, clearly the autonomic nervous system involved, but thoughts is where most people would find that really controversial, because we would like to think that every thought of ours is ours.
Oh, I hope to God it's not, because I'm a monster if every thought I've had is mine.
So with that awareness, I think that's where like the whole sunlight and self-awareness thing comes in. Is because it's like, it's so insidious when, even now as I'm speaking, it's like there's a whole mix of stuff going on, right? And like, not being able to tease that apart causes, you know, our mental afflictions.
Okay, a lot in there. I want to catch up on some chat here. Naomi, it is what it is my favorite poem. Is it a separate poem, or is it like literally that phrase? Shogunai in Japanese means it can't be helped. Cool. That today I learned. Yeah, 100% things I can't control. All right, so I don't know if I agree with that's the thinking fast and slow thesis in a different dress. Although that's a fun phrase.
I need to confess I never actually read through the book, so you're gonna have to explain it back to me.
The kind of like soft thesis is when you look at something, you have like quick processing and you have like more longitudinal processing. The quick processing can be really, really good, and they bring up stuff like chicken sexers or art forgery in investigator. Do you know what a chicken sexer is actually?
I'm guessing that someone whose professional job is to tell whether a chicken is male or female.
Yeah, 100%. And like you'll just see an assembly line of people looking at all like factory farming, sins aside. It's an incredible thing that they can just like hold and look at a baby chick and like tell what gender it is with like surprising accuracy. Anyway, the overall thesis has been kind of like debunked in the way that he presented it, but like the fact remains, chicken sexers exist and they do a good job. And then forgery investigators also can often pretty quickly tell whether something's real or not, and it's in some way, shape, or form the result of having done it for so long that some part of their brain knows it.
So this is in the skills dimension, right? I think I'm thinking along the feelings dimension.
Yeah.
Which, like has all of these subcomponents.
Yeah. The feeling thing's interesting because like your feelings don't come from nowhere. Like they are also like Kristen without your life experiences would feel something differently than Kristen with your life experiences, just because like you interpret the same situation differently based on like how you've experienced, I don't know, similar things previously. So in a way, I kind of do think that your feelings are part of you, but it's like a part of you that it's the same way that like the part of you that gets acne on your face, right? It is a thing that is you, and it is the like it sums up in some way to you, but it's not like the agentic you, right? Like it's not the you that is controlling this meat robot.
Exactly. And so Naomi, I think so, because like it's like a gut feeling that something is off, right? I feel like I'm talking more to do with like when we're procrastinating or something, and a lot more of the day-to-day feelings and not so much these like skill-based gut feelings, which is also very interesting.
Like a reaction to a ball flying at your face. Like there is some chain of chemicals that happened to make you do the thing and respond to the thing.
Yeah, like an instinctual reaction sort of thing.
Yeah, and you can train that, which is kind of what I think you're saying is like there are parts of it that you can, I mean, like you can train your feelings too, right? Like there are plenty of bad situations that I get into and I like don't feel bad at the time because I know that it's not the thing that the situation needs, and then you feel all of the things later.
Yeah.
So sunlight.
Yeah.
How bright is it where you're like, what's sunrise, sunset?
Well, it took a while today because it's raining outside right now.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but like it's actually it's funny you bring that up because I grew up in a place that always had the exact same sunrise and sunset time, because in the tropics, there's no changes in time. And you have to be like in some degree of very north or very south before you get into the differences.
It's not the same exact time. It was like basically the same time, right?
Yeah, it's like very close, right? It's not like, on the dot. But because if you're anywhere like above or below the exact line, but yeah, like the whole even in like SoCal, it wasn't as dramatic as like where in Northern California.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you like the rain?
Well, I guess we need it for the crops and stuff, but it is very inconvenient.
That's funny. I love the rain. I like
because you're emo boy?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I enjoy the, cozy rain outside, but I genuinely like being in the rain up to the point that I have to go to sleep in it. Like I don't want to sleep in the rain. I've done that. It's not very fun, but I love walking around in the rain. I think it's really interesting that if you like, and if you've never done it before, everyone listening to the show is generally privileged enough to have a second set of clothes. I would recommend just like walking around in the rain and like letting your clothes get super like fully soaked.
That's happened to me before. And then I was trapped behind a mudslide for 3 days.
Yeah, that's crazy. What's that story?
Yeah, so my wife and I were hiking in the Sierras, and the torrential like storm suddenly came, and we were already like a mile in. But then we were like, okay, let's turn back. This is like my shoes.
Yeah.
I was, dude, don't ever buy these Solomon like waterproof shoes, because what happens is water just gets trapped inside the shoe.
Yeah.
So you're wearing 2 boats.
Unless you're full wetsuit with like everything overlapping, waterproof is not real.
Yeah, so for now I have these like breathable shoes. But yeah, and then we wanted to leave, but like a mudslide had happened to the only exit out. So we were trapped by this Lake Sabrina area with like 50 other people for 3 days. And luckily there's like one concession store like for that one lake. So we were like depleting all of their hamburgers and all of their food.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's where I learned. It's like, oh my gosh, we had like barely another change of clothes in the car, but we hadn't. In fact, we had to buy one of their souvenir shirts, like because we were just like it was like surprise.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
So I feel like because of that scenario, and then they were even like going to send a chopper out, and we were like clearing the parking lot of all the rocks, which is apparently something you have to do in case like the chopper actually lands and it kicks up all the rocks and stuff.
Yeah, that shit's dangerous.
Yeah, so ever since then, I feel like the rain can be a little dangerous.
Understatement of the year. Weather is incredibly dangerous, and it gets incredibly dangerous really fast. Like I think that's a thing that a lot of people that don't spend much time outside don't understand, is that it like a nice day can go to the worst day of your life like really fast if the weather conditions align in a bad way.
Yeah. Oh man, Boundary Water. That's on my bucket list to visit.
Same.
And hello.
Yeah. Oh, Naomi, I like the rain plus the wind. Well, one of my favorite things to do is to watch the wind just shake the tops of trees. Obviously, you got to watch out for big old falling branches, widowmakers and stuff. But I think that's a really enjoyable thing.
Actual danger that people don't realize.
Yeah, no, that's like there's a joke in the military that bad stuff always happens to privates. Not like your private parts, like the lowest ranking soldier.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a law of math because they're like
there's so many more.
Yeah, are the most numerous. So of course the bad things happen to the privates, but like in the woods or whatever, where you do a lot of training, private will set up like a fighting position or a foxhole or whatever. And in Fort Benning, there's like a lot of thunderstorms. It's Georgia, so there's tornadoes, there's a lot of high wind. And just out of like, for some reason, Joe, like the private, will always set up underneath like the scariest branch. And then of course it's like the tree or whatever is going to fall on them. I've, partially why you wear helmets, but dude, I've seen so many crazy coincidences of injury things happen or almost happen to Joe, and a surprising amount involve trees falling.
Good to know. So in the military, you're training for all of these scenarios, right? Theoretically. And I feel like the whole sunlight topic has to do with like, we have to be ready for every single iteration of weather within our minds.
Yeah. I mean, like I don't really think the Army prepared me for most weather stuff, other than with the mindset of like, hey, this is the weather you're operating in, do it. There's not like a special, okay, it's raining now, so get out your special coat so you don't get rained. It's like, no, you just get rained on.
Oh.
Yeah, like there's not.
That's part of the training.
No, you just get wet.
Oh.
Even if you have like a poncho or whatever,
yeah.
it's not actually waterproof. It's maybe water resistant if you're lucky, and so most of the time you don't even get it out because it's just going to be an extra layer of wet things that you're wearing, and so it just kind of like makes
Well,
sense. Yeah.
okay. I mean, that kind of makes sense, but it's kind of sad that the military budget is not spent towards better gear.
I mean, it is spent on better gear. It's just more shooty gear versus
Comfort
comfort
gear.
gear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in extreme cold weather, that there's like some pretty good coats. Sleeping bags are pretty good. Like if you fall into a frozen river, the way that you deal with that is you get out one of your cold weather sleeping bags.
Mm-hmm.
Person who's soaking wet strips down. Person who is not wet also strips down, butt ass naked. You get in there, and then like it'll keep you warm and alive until you can like extract. But
Mm-hmm.
it's very much a unless you absolutely have to, you just deal with like your baseline gear because
Yeah.
it's more useful to focus on the other things that you're supposed to be doing.
Okay. Well, maybe this is now not the time to tell you that I used to buy army surplus gear for fun. Um,
That's fine. It's generally good. It's not going to be as good as like professional camping gear, which is why high tier operators typically buy private sector gear.
Their own stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the
I learned later on that army gear actually doesn't mean the best gear. It means whatever the contractor, whoever bid the lowest to provide the gear, made the thing.
Yeah, but the role of sunlight in all of that is really it's just another condition that you fight in. And it's in fact like not really like everybody has different kind of opinions on it. For me, I really found the most utility on like slightly rainy days, especially if it was a little bit cold, because people who are doing guard duty or like guarding something are typically static, right? Like they're staying in one spot. It's very hard to stay in one spot for more than an hour or two and not just start feeling sorry for yourself and miserable and cold. And so when somebody's been like sitting there and they're like feeling sorry for themselves, blah, 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 they're not looking out as far. Typically visibility is worse. And so like that slightly rainy also covers the sound of your movement, because like the whole woods are kind of noisy. And so there's just a lot of benefits to not operating in the sunlight. And obviously night that's a whole different
if you
there.
are the person trying to get in and stuff.
Yeah.
I see.
I'm always the aggressor, Kristen.
That doesn't match up with your previous stories about being a sad private standing there, but okay.
Well, I was in a private. I was an officer.
Oh, you didn't? You never had to do the private part?
I mean, I've done a lot of the duties, but like the officer path is just a different path than enlisted.
Oh, I didn't know that. So,
yeah, like
you can skip a lot of the steps.
Yeah, I mean, so I went to military college, so a little bit different. But at my college, we had guard duty. It was more symbolic than anything else. But I've been out at 2 a.m. in the cold with a stupid rifle, just like, why am I guarding this building? No one's attacking, kind of thing. So like I felt some of that. Not gonna say went through the same experience or anything like that.
I see.
But the point of sunlight wasn't about army stuff at all. It was about like we were trying to like talk about self-knowledge, right? Was that our conversation?
So another perspective I wanted to get your take on is like oftentimes like we can't see ourselves, right? And theoretically, your friends, people that you're close to can provide you feedback about yourself that you can't get otherwise.
Yep.
How often do you ask people for honest feedback?
I don't a lot.
You don't? I think you actually do, but
you do. Well, I mean, I probably ask you.
Like, just tell me honestly what you think. So I'm like, okay.
I mean, I ask you. I don't ask like most people in my life because like,
I feel special.
I mean, generally I don't trust people enough to give me an honest opinion when I ask for it. Not because I think they're malicious, but I think the act of asking for it changes their opinion about it.
How so?
in kind of like the same way that if you ask a user for feedback on a product, they will give you feedback on the product, but it's going to be something that like it's like the same thing where it's like, hey,
stated
like,
versus revealed preference. But
yeah, it's like,
for
what are you thinking
yourself.
about right now? Like, if you ask me what I'm thinking about right now, I'd be like, oh, camera, and it wouldn't actually be what I'm thinking about because like you're changing the situation by asking. So for most people in my life, I don't ask their opinion on this thing because I know it's kind of a like I'm lying to them and they're lying to me because we're both trying to go through this ritual of feedback instead of just like picking up the signals from what's actually happening, which is what I try to do more of.
So why do I get a pass?
Because we've worked together long enough that I trust you. I trust you to say what you're actually thinking before I ask that question, because I've just seen you do it. Like, I think generally when I ask you that kind of stuff. And so since you have done it before, because like I'll like ask a test balloon or whatever, sometimes it'll be like about a thing that I don't even like actually care your opinion on. I just want to see if you'll give an honest take. I'm not like that explicitly manipulative. But that's the kind of stuff that I do because like I don't like I've spent most of my life not really understanding other people for whatever reason, or at least to a level that like I want to understand other people.
So you already guessed what I think, and then you're just asking me to see if it matches what I think.
Sometimes, like I mean, I guess in a way it's a little bit like a toxic partner, but
oh great.
I don't know, like me being the toxic one. It's I also just don't think people are really good at giving honest feedback because most people don't ask for
it. Oh, Miriam says that's a good point. I'm like,
I appreciate it. Which one?
Point? Yeah.
Like, like you ask for feedback, but you've kind of dedicated to your life to self-reflection with this Chaplin stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? What an endless process. I think that's like two things, right? There is like the whole like what we're doing, like skill-based feedback of like, oh, we should do X versus Y.
Yeah.
But it's also like, oh, the way you're perceiving this right now may be not matching what I perceive the world. Doesn't mean it's objective either, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like those are the kind of feedback. And like generally when so having done a bit of coaching work, what I observe with my clients is, and myself too, is like the way you perceive yourself, most of the time people I interact with tend to underperceive, like underplay their strengths and all of that. Yeah, because of all the things that have been drilled into us, right? So therefore, like that's the correction, right? Like, it's kind of like, oh, there's a little bit too much denigration. Like, in reality, it's more like, blah blah blah. And it's sort of like my teacher says it's conceit either way. Actually, you think you're being humble, but actually you're being egotistical, but just in a negative direction.
Sure. Yeah. I buy that.
Yeah. So I feel like it is important to like gather feedback, but I think the part that I do once in a while, maybe you don't even know that, I do ask people for like compliments, like on purpose, to be like, hey, like what do you think I'm good at?
Oh, interesting. I don't do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't do that. I can't imagine you going around and doing that. But I find it really helpful because I know I tend to calibrate towards the negative, so I need to push everything towards the positive.
Yeah.
And of course, the self, like the critical feedback is also important, but in reality, I don't seek that out because I generate so much in myself that I didn't feel it was very helpful, because it just, even if it is true, and even if it's something like novel that I didn't think of, I'm now going to go through my negative feedback loop, just analyzing that one piece. So that's not helpful for me.
Yeah. I mean, it is really important to know whether you're a default optimist or a default pessimist. Oh, Miriam, that's helpful. I appreciate that struck a chord with you in some way. Like the default optimist or default pessimist, which is like a shorthand for what we're basically talking about. helps you understand whether you think you're more likely to succeed than you actually are. I had a professor, I think I might have said this before, but I had a professor that he's supposed to be teaching economics, but he just kind of wanted to teach what he wanted to teach because he had been, the CEO of this big casino conglomerate, and his first rule is don't run out of cash, which is a good rule. And spent a ton of time talking about how everybody that fails at business basically runs out of cash with extra steps. But his thing about understanding your default bias was really important for him because he missed out on Macau being Macau. So like he was in that ecosystem before they built a ton of casinos in Macau, and now Macau is like a top casino tourism destination in the world, and he didn't build any casinos there because he's just like, Macau's not going to happen. And he's just like, that specific example for me was enough for me to realize that systemically I undervalue opportunities because I can figure out the things that aren't going to happen or that might go wrong a lot better than I can figure out the things that might go right. So does that mean you consider yourself a default pessimist, at least about yourself?
Oh, for sure. And then I think that I agree with this comment too. It's like I'm aware that I tend to be like, I'm the person you want to hire to figure out all the things that can go wrong so that we can mitigate that risk. But
anxiety in a box.
Right, which is anxiety is a skill, right? I think that's the other like thing that I think people undervalue is like anxious people are really good at like covering the bases, right?
For
They
sure.
can think of everything that can go wrong. But then you also need to develop, I also need to develop the skill of like seeing opportunities, which is almost like a very different mode of thinking, right?
I mean, I told you this the other day, and I think it is 1,000% true, and it's probably true for most people in this chat. But like, I think you need to value your time at $1,000 an hour, Kristen, because like you're so competent and capable, and you don't. And like I had an old partner of mine, super toxic relationship, but now but it was a really good piece of advice of like, he forced me to operate as if I was doing that for the thing that we were building. And it really changed how I thought about what I was doing in my day-to-day at that business. And I kind of now, I mean, I still feel the same way.
So what's a concrete example of what you actually changed?
So I spent a lot of time finessing emails. Like I was in so I handled ops, product, and sales at this thing. And I was spending, I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 minutes, sometimes more, crafting these emails. And, there's a finite sales pipeline, but I wanted everything to be like perfect. And there'd be multiple examples of like, oh, I haven't had time to like think through this email yet today or whatever. And then a 1-day turnaround turned into 2. And then like something came up and it like, I might not respond to an important email for like, I don't know, 3-4 days. And when you're doing sales stuff, that like days in Q1 turn into weeks and months in Q4. Right. And so, one of the big things I changed was like, okay, the email gets a 2-minute response, and it's much better to get that 2-minute response back to them. Cause like, frankly, no one gives a shit about your email anyway. And so like, there are exceptions to that case. And this was pre-Chat GPT. So like you couldn't church up emails in the same way that you could today with basically no effort. But the tangible change was like, hey, if I'm worth $1,000 an hour, I should be working to bring income in or revenue in that can like pay for that $1,000. And the lever that I need to pull there is quantity, not like individual quality of an email. Cause like the quantity of having 20 sent out when I just sent out 1 is way more impactful.
So I mean, this is in fewer words, like learning to prioritize, right?
I mean, like that's really what it is.
Which is one of those like easier said and done things. Because I think in this example, though, like the issue is that you don't know which email is the one that's going to be the whale lead, right? So therefore, then one starts to overthink each one of these opportunities. So,
and it doesn't feel great for like creative types, because in some ways it's saying, hey, the thing that you're like really putting your heart into might not be the thing that's actually valuable for you.
Exactly. So,
which is brutal. Like, as a writer, that's brutal.
Well, actually, what came to mind immediately, well, it's like kind of like Jonathan Coulton. Do you remember him? Like more famous in 2000s ish. He wrote a bunch of songs for Portal, the game, and other things.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, and he got famous because he went through a practice of writing one song a day or something, some crazy schedule.
Yeah,
and then like because of the volume of work he put in, like a few like single hits came out of that.
Right.
And it's like an example where even with creative stuff you could turn it into a quantity game.
Yeah.
But it's wasn't sustainable. Eventually he burned out. So
yeah. I also I've thought about the conundrum of quantity for creative stuff a lot, because obviously we're trying to get a ton of clips out for our channel, and that's just hard. I also have kind of come back around on aligning with myself on quantity versus quality.
What does that mean?
I think that there are some things that, even if the pragmatic move is to put out more quantity of things, there's a point in that trade-off where it doesn't feel as good or as fun for you, which will ultimately make your kind of like career or lifespan with that thing shorter than if you had like put out less quantity. And so, like, another way of saying put out less quantity is like curate what you want to share a little bit better. And for a lot of people, their default curating too much, and so like they need that push to put more out. But I also do think that, like, especially in like a non-comedy domain, the curation can matter a whole heck of a lot. Have you ever seen any interviews with Tyler, the Creator, about his transition from like a comedy writer to like a serious artist? He has you're familiar with like his body of work?
He has a new album, right?
He does. Chromacopia.
Yeah, Chromacopia. Yeah, I know it because it was posted on Farcaster.
Yeah, it's not my favorite Tyler, the Creator album. He actually, so did you ever hear?
It's like a very concept high art sort of situation, right?
Yeah. Sticky is probably the breakout song from the album. But so his early work was like shock rap. Like, it was very aggressive, used a lot of like, frankly, used a lot of like homoerotic imagery in an industry not known for being accepting of that. And so Yonkers was like, I think, the breakout song for him. And so he had this period of like, I've listened to his music since he started putting it out. He had a lot of like shock songs, like very technically good, but like shocking lyrics, shocking imagery. And then he transitioned into this, like, kind of doing sketches and becoming like this character, just doing a lot of funny stuff. But he said one day in like 2016, 2017, he had somebody come up to him and basically say that they loved how funny he was. And he like started seeing all of these people giving him feedback about what he was doing being like good and funny. And every single thing that he wanted out of music was more aligned with being taken seriously as an artist and like putting out these things that actually shared what he was feeling versus just making people laugh. And so one day he's just like, I realized I can't be the serious like artist that I want to be if I'm doing this comedy stuff, because that's all people are going to know me for, because it's like a very specific lens that people view you through when they see you as a comedian. And that, like, honestly really like stuck with me, because like I love comedy too, but I also feel like I have things that I want to say that I would like people to be able to take more seriously. And so the quantity piece there is it's like a piece of it where, okay, if you're putting stuff out, every day, it's hard for people to take everything that you put out seriously, because it's just hard to take things seriously for a long period of time. Like that's like a taxing thing. And so
Mhm.
I don't know, like obviously there's a big risk in putting out one album every few years, but that's a way of constraining the decisions that people have against you, which is, I don't know, it's
Well,
just
but
interesting.
I don't know. I feel like that's a luxury of someone who's made it, right?
For sure.
Like it's almost like a trope, right? There's the comedian who makes really funny stuff, and then once they have the audience, then you can be like, "Aha! Now that
Yeah.
I've got you, I'm
Yeah.
gonna put out the true feeling stuff."
Yeah. I mean, like it's 100% a thing that you can only really understand if you've learned the lesson the hard way,
Mhm.
right? Because we can intellectualize about it all we want, but we don't have the reach that we want to have yet, and so
Well,
it's
but clearly we're going straight to serious stuff all the time anyway. So
yeah.
you've been writing poems.
Unfortunately,
Why? Why? Unfortunately.
I mean, it's kind of a joke. I want to release a book,
Mhm.
like an anthology, and I really like thinking of names and titles of things. And I think if I ever have the chance to do that, I think I'm going to call it "Unfortunately, I Write Poems," because I think
Oh.
it's like it sums up how I feel about it. Where it's like, oh, this is a thing that I like to do,
Mhm.
and I do it in the context of the rest of my life, which is like a generally go-getter, pragmatic, like want to accomplish things type ambitious dude.
Mhm.
And it just isn't a thing that really like works for that storyline or like how I perceive myself. Um, and so kind of like the sunlight here is me being pretty honest about viewing the things that I do, both in the conscious, hey, I like want it to fit into a box maybe, but also, hey, like the thing that you're doing clearly doesn't fit into this box, and so you either got to accept that you aren't doing the thing that you want to do,
Mhm.
or you have to change kind of your self perception of the things that you want to do. Um, and so yeah, I've been doing a lot of writing.
How
I
many
actually
poems does it take to make an anthology in your eyes?
I have no idea. I mean, I definitely have enough material to probably put out. Like I got maybe like a couple of these books full, right? And
Mhm.
so there's probably maybe like 100 useful pages in there.
Oh.
Um,
Have you
and
ever seen, that notebook reminds me, the Kurt Cobain's journal
uh,
reprinted?
I think I've seen like pictures of it. I haven't like seen a printing of the journal. Do they do that?
Yeah, I had it when I was younger.
Okay, let me
Um,
go buy it.
well, I feel like, very torn about it because, I mean, obviously it's a commercialization of something that he might have wanted to be kept private. But like they did like a perfect replication of his notebook, it's like a spiral bound and you see all the lines and like his scribbles everywhere. And I always love that aesthetic of like just publishing the actual raw thing rather than it all typed up and stuff.
Yeah. I've been going back and forth about what I would want to do. I actually had the idea of a collection of things that I'd want to be published posthumously.
Hmm.
Because like there's some things that like you don't like you feel but you don't want to share, right? And so
So at your funeral, we get like a bomb drop.
yeah, yeah, just like, oh man, I really hated all these people. No, no, it's not anything like that. It's just kind of like I don't know. I got an ego just like everybody else.
Hmm.
Maryam done. But yeah, so
Right? This
like
is ripe for
my
on-chain commerce.
my so like my dilemma is all right. So I'm a big E.E. Cummings fan. I'm a big fan of E.E. Cummings conceptually. His individual poems often are very hit or miss to me because it's like a lot more. It's more of an exploration of how to use the typewriter in interesting ways than I think of
Mm.
like than actually saying super interesting things. Although some poems I think are absolutely beautiful. And specifically some like turns of phrase he uses are absolutely beautiful. Like together colored moment, like that kind of stuff. I eat that shit up. And so, but we have
I like the
computers now.
juxtaposition of like of that sentence, and I eat that shit up.
I do. I do. Uh, but and so I kind of want to publish my journal stuff because it is like how I'm feeling it, but I'm not writing for my journal. I'm writing to translate it to a computer screen because that's how I like think about media. And I guess technically to a phone screen, but like I think in terms of computer, I mean, like we were just talking about this. Millennials think about computers as the big rectangle.
Yes.
And so do you want to explain that?
So it is a stereotype that millennials, we have to make big purchases on the big rectangle. So like plane tickets and booking hotels, like I have to do it on the big screen. But I think it's a combination of like, just being comfortable with entering, credit card numbers and stuff on the keyboard, but also because my eyesight's going. So it's just really hard to see stuff on the little rectangle.
I was telling Kristen
I'll soon be like holding a little flashlight in a dark restaurant with the menu.
Yo, that's my dad all day. He loves that. Like I don't think he's ever been in a restaurant without a flashlight in 10 years. Yeah, that's I love that E.E. Cummings quote there. One is not half of two, but two are halves of one. For audio listeners. But anyway, so like E.E. Cummings didn't have a computer screen. And so we can do things with kind of like the visual arrangement of words that we couldn't do, 50 years ago. And, there's obviously poets that do that, but I kind of want to explore that space. And so like, in a way, the journal poems aren't finished yet because they haven't been like, they don't show up in the typeface that I want. They don't show up spatially the way that I want on the screen. I don't know. But so
there's like a visual design element that you want to incorporate.
Yeah, because like it's one thing to say words and it's another thing to like complete the message. You know what I mean?
That sounds really deep. I don't know what you mean, but it sounds great.
I don't know. I just I'm a LLM, right? I just arrange what I think I should say next. But anyway, so the whole point of this was like I've been doing a lot of sunlight shining on myself, or I've been trying to. Some in relation to the startup stuff, some in relation to personal stuff. And I do that through writing. Do you do it in a different way, Kristen?
Ooh, I don't prefer it, though I do it. So like right now I'm in a 100-day journaling 750 words challenge with my friends, as one does.
Yeah.
So I have been writing 750 words a day, which is about 3 pages, kind of like a morning pages sort of thing.
That's a commitment.
Yeah. Well, it's not a commitment if you just write whatever BS that comes into your head. So, which is the purpose of the practice, right? It's not so much to craft beautiful prose; it's to like access parts of your mind that may not be so conscious if you are constantly censoring yourself. So you just allow yourself to write whatever that's top of your head. I find that I go through phases right now where actually speaking is a better modality. So sometimes I cheat with the 750 words. I do like a voice memo on the phone, and now like iOS has auto transcript, so I know that if I ramble for 5 minutes, that's about 750 words. So sometimes I do that because it's easier for me to like recall what happened during the day and all these like typical journaling things by speaking rather than typing. Of course, like I used to do a lot more writing, and I think it's just one of those like whatever skill you use is the one you develop. And because I talk to you all the freaking time, like speaking is a stronger skill for me than writing right now.
When you're speaking, do you turn over the thoughts as you're saying them? Like, do you like handle them?
I don't think I'm doing whatever the hell you're doing.
Okay. Cause like when I write stuff, especially when it's about a thing, I kind of feel like if I was gonna like tangibilize it, I feel like I'm putting something on a table and like manipulating it to understand it.
Word Legos.
Yeah, something like that. And so when I speak, I kind of feel like Michael Scott a lot of the time, where I don't really know what I'm gonna say, but I just keep kind of talking, and eventually I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And I know that, like you've pointed out, that like you don't think I'm doing that, but honestly, I really do feel like I'm doing that a lot of the time. Which
so Cameron LLM,
Yeah.
Generating words.
Cam GPT.
Yeah. A lot of people do that, right? Like
Yeah.
they use verbalization to hear themselves think,
Yep.
which is possible, right? Like according to the internal family systems IFS sort of theory, it's like
No idea what
there's
that is.
different parts of your mind. There
Yeah.
are different parts of your mind, like they develop at different stages of your life. So there's almost there is like a kind of inner child you in a sense,
Okay.
and like they can access different parts of your body. So sort of like the idea of like trauma being in your body is because like that part of the mind locks in that part. So therefore,
Huh.
like that's why I feel like that's why when I write versus when I speak, it's actually different Kristens who are doing different things. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's how I perceive like when we're working with these word Legos, it's like, okay, you get this, you get to shine a light on this little corner, whereas you know, if you speak, you get that little corner.
Okay. What
I
ones?
feel like I used to have to think a lot more before I talk, but because this live stream prevents me from having any pauses,
Yeah,
I am
yeah,
now forced to be more LLM than I really want to be.
I
And
mean,
if I could choose it, I would not do it this way.
I mean,
I don't know how to like solve this.
the flip side is not having a live portion and just recording what we're saying and then editing it to basically craft like a story of some
Editing
kind.
is so painful.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate it.
Editing video really sucks.
Yeah,
I admire people who actually love doing it, and they treat like video clips as Legos, right? Really good editors.
Yeah.
Whereas I just literally don't have that skill, and it's not materializing anytime soon.
Yeah. I don't know. There's not a wrong way to do it. What do you think is the most useful for you, like in terms of sunlightifying your thoughts?
For me, it is spending time with myself.
What does that mean? Just like sitting there?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right?
Like in a chair, in an empty room, like make it real for me.
Solitude of any kind, yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be so like stark, but I think because you know right now I'm actually listening to what you're saying and like reacting to the audience. Like I feel for me any sort of self-reflection requires solitude, and that's also why I've been like a lot more quiet lately on all these different platforms and things like that, because I'm just buying myself time with myself, you know.
That's so interesting. And like when you're by yourself, is there like what's the end state, or like what are you doing? Is it just, oh, I'm just thinking, or is it something else?
I'm working on awareness, which, you know, like this is where it gets controversial. Like, is that meditation or not? But let's just say, like, removing the word meditation from the equation.
I mean, you
like
get to name whatever you're doing.
That is true-ish, but as you know, like language in this Tower of Babel sense, like you and I have to agree on the definition of the word to communicate. And because I know the word meditation is so like colored by what is practiced by most practitioners, like it already gives you like a conceived notion, right? Oh, meditating means you're sitting on a cushion and you're facing the wall or whatever. And that's not necessarily what I mean. So I mean it in terms of like developing awareness of it's like metacognition is closer, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's like noticing the ways in which my mind's reacting to either whatever I've just self-generated or like, you know, external circumstances, all sorts of things.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of these like monastic practices are really about solitude, because you need that.
So while I disagree with you saying that we need, I mean, I don't disagree with you saying it, you said it. I don't think we need to agree on the definition of words in order to understand each other. I just think we need to be aware of each other's definition of words.
Oh yeah, you're technically correct. I think I said it in the wrong way.
But I get what you meant by that, which is like, hey, if you can't agree on assumptions or first principles or whatever, why are you debating theology? Because like you just my book says your book is wrong, your book says my book is wrong type energy. And so like I totally get that. That's so interesting though, because I didn't realize this. I didn't realize I was doing this until maybe this conversation. But I also chase solitude. But usually it as like a means for me to approach something resembling a flow state. And it's like even a walk in the woods for me, it's like I am looking at things and I'm trying to collect a bunch of things to like ping off of my brain to just like create like let's play with like a phrase of wording about this thing that I just saw. And me doing that and kind of like playing the game with words in my brain, or like chewing over a thought or something like that, it's explicitly for this. It's explicitly for the purpose of continuing to play a game or to like think about something. It's not like I'm just trying to be aware of things.
And here things is my own mind. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. No, I actually don't know what you mean.
So again, this is very much like everyone has their own goals, but then for me, I feel like the ultimate goal of being alive is understanding what the hell is happening. So therefore,
Kristen, that's insane.
Right?
That's insane. I cannot understand what's happening, and I refuse to.
Yeah, and I think this is actually the biggest difference between like you and my friend Buster and me is like I still believe there is an ultimate spiritual awakening, whereas you all absurdist nihilists, no escape kind of people don't believe in that. So therefore, I still spend my time trying to understand what the hell is happening, which is a nicer way of saying spiritual practice.
Why do you clean?
Like my apartment?
Yeah.
So like the true reason is that obviously I need to clean to because I think it's aesthetically pleasing. Like
Okay.
I'm trying to get rid of the aversion I have to something dirty, but I think there's also the practical layer of like we need a clean home in order to live. So right, because it's sort of like if I'm spending all my time understanding what the hell's happening, I'll just like starve to death, right? Like there's also like you need to balance that with extending your lifespan to a reasonable degree and health span to a reasonable degree. So you still need to like look after yourself and have a bit of money, that kind of thing. Like I think that's and there's no good answer to that. It's not like there's a true answer to when you do what.
I was thinking about this a lot recently. I really liked the army because there was a right place for everything. Like I knew what to wear. I knew how to wear it correctly.
Yeah, there's a ritual.
Yeah, there's like a ritual piece to it, but it's really like hey, even if just temporarily, there is a doneness that can exist if everything is in its proper place. Which I guess is like a bastardization of Marie Kondo.
I'm pretty sure what you're saying predates Marie Kondo.
No, it does.
Much later.
But like in terms of the philosophy behind it, because like the reason why you clean,
yeah, heart like cleaning.
Like the reason why you clean in the military is because if you don't clean, people get sick and die because you have a mass of people. But like the effect of that core why is really a culture of there being a rightness to things, which also has its place in value.
Yes, and then I'm, this is the controversial part. I'm questioning spark joy and this and all of that, because it's not as pure as we think.
Yeah, it's the gold star problem.
What is the gold star problem?
that
I
like
understand Gold Star in a completely different context.
oh, I mean, like it's when you have children and they help out around the house because that's what they were taught to do, and then you start
Mm.
giving out gold stars for it. They
Mhm.
optimize for gold stars versus doing kind of the cultural thing that you were trying to teach them in the first place. So you're like replacing
Mhm.
perhaps a healthier incentive with a physical incentive that is more powerful, but maybe
Mhm.
like less wholesome.
Right, right. So going back to it is what it is, like, which is how I'm gonna wrap up this episode. It's sort of like when we're sweeping, like, don't sweep because it helps you get rid of the yucky feeling or to create the I feel clean feeling, but
Mhm.
sweep to sweep, which is such a high level
I mean,
thing
that's
to actually pull off.
the conification of okay banger, but I think it's good. I like that a lot. And
Yeah, stream to stream.
it kind of